Do you hate printing out PDF patterns? Printing, aligning, taping, cutting, and you haven't even gotten to touch the fabric yet? Do you like working from books with grid patterns, but hate needing to carefully scale it up, drawing out your pattern inch by inch by inch, dot by dot? Are you tired of all of the material and time wasted with these methods? This bypasses all that nonsense. Hello and welcome, kind friends. A few months ago, I was reintroduced to the idea of projecting sewing patterns rather than printing or manually scaling them. I used to use this old opaque projector in school where I would copy grid patterns onto the wall where I had taped up a big piece of paper. Projectors have gotten way more advanced since then. I ordered this little guy, and today I would like to take you along as I get this installed and very shallowly cover the basics of projectors for sewing, just enough to help you determine if it might be a good fit for your sewing setup as well. Now, this setup could get very fancy, but at the most basic level, you'll need a projector, a way to mount your projector, a computer or phone, and a level cutting surface. I bought a Vivimage Explorer 2, which I will link to down below, but I recommend that you research the various projector options before purchasing because some are going to be better for different kinds of setups. One of the biggest factors here is the throw, or the amount of space between your projector's lens and the surface that it's projecting onto. Each projector is going to have a minimum and maximum throw which way they will work properly. Even if you install a projector that will technically work within the space that you have available, it might project a smaller image than your typical pattern piece needs would rather have. Personally, I'm most interested in corset and bodice patterns, so having a fairly small projection size on my table due to my short ceilings doesn't really bother me that much. Another thing to think about here is where you're going to mount it. I live in a space where I can drill straight into the ceiling, which is fantastic, but a lot of people don't. In that case, you might want to look at a ultra short throw or UST projector. These can be set up right on your sewing table, and then they can throw a huge image right next to them, no ceiling mount needed. These are really, really great, but they do tend to be a bit expensive. An alternate setup for those of you who can't drill into your ceiling is to use a tripod and cast onto your floor. Depending on your home setup, this might mean that you'll need to put away your projector between uses and recalibrate it every time, but it is a lot more flexible than the ceiling mount option. Once you've set up a projector and you have it installed and where you like, you then need to think about how you're going to transmit the pattern image to the projector. Some projectors have the ability to accept a feed over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, including this little Viv. If I want, I can select Miracast, then Smart View on my phone, select MCast, and then my phone will start projecting its screen right onto the table. From here, I could open up my pattern and voila, there we go. I can pinch and drag, but personally, I find this method to be a bit imprecise, so instead I'm going to connect via an HDMI cable to this laptop. From here, I can open up my pattern in Adobe Reader and then manually set my zoom level, and it's a lot harder to accidentally kind of bump your pattern out of place once you have everything just as you like it. Now that everything is set up, I need to calibrate my projector and its zoom level. For that, I'm going to close the pattern and open up this handy little calibration PDF that I found on the Facebook group Projectors for Sewing. This group has been incredibly helpful. I've added a link down below so that you can check it out. I'm using Adobe Acrobat Reader, and I recommend that before you go any further, go ahead and go into Preferences and select the full screen section and then unclick Fill with one page at a time. Now enter full screen using Control-L, and that way you can use the most of what little space you have. We're then going to access the zoom function by pressing Control-Y and entering a zoom number. This is a little bit big right now, so we're going to reduce that number down until it nicely matches my cutting mat. Speaking of which, having a gridded mat like this is going to be incredibly handy for this process, but you could instead measure the size of various rectangles with a ruler to verify that you've hit the right zoom level. Once you've got the zoom nearly settled, you may notice that the projected rectangles are still not quite matching. This might have to do with the angle of the projector and how it's hitting the surface. If you have the projector tilted one way or the other, then the rectangle gets smaller or larger on the various sides. Ideally, your projected image will have perfect right angles. Adjust it to get there as close as you can by physically maneuvering the projector, and if you need, adjust that last little tiny bit by using the keystone adjustment, which is usually a dial somewhere on your projector. This does slightly distort the image though, so use it as a last refinement tool. You also have a focus dial here, so you can use that to adjust your lines and try and get them as sharp as possible. Try to remember that zoom level that you used for the calibration square, because in theory, that should be the correct zoom level for all of your future patterns, unless something about your setup changes. Maybe you move where your projector is, or how high your table is, and such. From here, the world's kind of your oyster. If you'd like, you can go ahead and cut straight into your fabric right away. I do recommend, however, putting down a few pattern weights to help prevent the fabric from shifting around on you. And I like rotary cutters for this method, but scissors are definitely usable too. If you're a bit trepidatious about the idea of just jumping right on into cutting your fabric, you could also trace the pattern lines with chalk or a fabric pen, thread tracing, whatever you would normally do for a paper pattern. And while one of the big benefits of this method is that you can reduce the number of paper patterns you just have to store perpetually in your space, but if you really want to have a paper pattern to use or reference later, you could trace this projection onto a roll of paper and kind of continue from normal there. One of the biggest benefits that folks will hype when it comes to discussing projectors for sewing is speed. The idea is that if you don't have to print out your pattern, align all your pages, tape it together, cut it out, all that, you should be able to go from purchasing a fabric online to cutting it out much faster. And while I don't doubt that, I was very much curious about exactly how much faster. Especially for someone who has never set up or calibrated their own projector before, is the effort that goes into setting all of this up worth the time savings of not printing out your patterns? Apparently, yes. Yes, it is worth it. I even tried to give the paper pattern a leg up by including the projector installation within the race, and it still came out ahead. Another element that I'm sure you're very curious about is the cost difference. Doing my best to approximately price everything out as needed for the two different methods, the projector version definitely costs more, assuming that you're starting out with 0 supplies. You could argue that if you print out a lot of patterns, the projector will eventually win, since it should be able to last through hundreds and hundreds of patterns, while you will eventually need to restock on paper and ink and tape and what have you with the printer method. So how you weigh the cost versus benefits of the two methods really depends on you, your needs, and what you value more. If you've been intrigued by the pattern that I've been demonstrating in this video so far, well, one, you have good taste. It is a Spencer pattern originally designed for the show Hamilton. The Costume Industry Coalition just released this pattern for sale as a fundraiser during this difficult for the theater industry time. Bernadette just posted a video going into way more detail about them and their current challenges. I'll link to her video and the pattern down below. They kindly gave me an advanced copy of the pattern, which I really appreciate. It helped me finally decide to go ahead and take the leap and buy a projector and figure it out, so thank you. Thank you to the team involved with creating this pattern. I've only made a rough mock-up, but it is darn cute. Lastly, thank you to my Patreon folk. I really don't say this often enough, but thank you all for your support. Without you, I wouldn't be able to explore and test new equipment that I then get to share with all of you. I love trying new things, and the fact that I get to is all thanks to you. Good night, friends.